Just another bee movie. This time without any killer tomatoes.
Oh, cool. There's a bee on my finger. Oh, there's a bee on my nose.
Oh, yeah. That's so funny.
Oh, sorry there. I'm sorry. Sorry, little bee. I thought you moved. Oh, that's cool. There's a bee on my nose. This is where we're picking up the bees, and it's just really cool. Over here to the left is a long line of all kinds of different people picking them up, and then there's kind of the store, and then over to the right there is where they keep all the bees, and they're just cutting apart the different little boxes with bees in them. And then there was a truck, there's a pollinator truck, and it was really cool. Okay, never mind, it's gone, but it just said like, caution, live bees. It was very cool.
The bees arrive at their brand new home, apartment CB.
These are the bees in their little box, buzzing around. Some of them are outside. Look at them. They're very gentle right now. I accidentally squished one up against my nose.
It was surprisingly easy to move the bees from the box they were traveling in into their new hive. Simply had to turn the box upside down and the bees came pouring out, kind of like pudding. To help them along, you just give a few firm shakes and they come out without a problem. At this time, the queen is in a separate little cage that protects her from all the worker bees while they get used to her and decide whether or not they're going to accept her as their queen. The cage goes into the hive along with all the other bees so they can continue to take care of her. Sorry there was no video for the previous part, but this next video is the last part of the bees moving into their hive. So even after I shook out all the bees, there were still a few hundred bees left clinging to the inside of the box. So you have to give them a way to find the new hive. So there is a piece of scrap wood that bridges the box to the entrance of the new hive. Then all the bees take this position where their butts are up in the air and they're fanning their wings very rapidly. And that's how they communicate back and forth to one another to show the ones in the box the way to the new entrance. The following videos mostly just come out of how amazing I think my bees are. It's just fascinating to me that all these bees are setting up a home in a hive right outside my bedroom. But since parents get to record everything about their kids, I figure I get to record a little bit about my bees as well.
Okay, and so actually they're using the bridge to get from the box into the hive. So that's where they're fanning at each other from the hive and also from the bridge. Kind of like over here. Okay, so it's now been a few hours since the bees moved in, and what they're doing is they're all kind of buzzing around the hive, and that's basically they're getting oriented to their new surroundings and just kind of exploring the environment. And so in the end, when it's just a normal day, they should just be pretty much coming in and out of the entrance, but not doing all this buzzing around and exploring. But yeah, so this is what they look like as they're getting oriented. And I don't know if you can tell on the video, but they're just so much quieter and more settled than they were when first dumped them in. Hey, I think you can tell, so I've just been sitting here for a while, watching and listening and everything. I think you can tell that they've gotten quieter. They've calmed down a bit. So they're kind of, yeah, getting into the swing of things. So, there we go. Got them on my toes, kind of tickle. I'm just coming out here. I don't know how much you'll actually be able to see recording in the dark, but just showing that it's now nighttime and all the bees are inside doing their nighttime activities. Nobody is buzzing around the hive, and so we'll just check in tomorrow and see what they're doing on their first full day in there. Okay, it's my second day with the bees, and I heard the first couple of bees going around 7 a.m., which was really encouraging because I have this, fear that they will have, flown away on me in the middle of the night. So we've got lots of activity. It's interesting. They're all around kind of the front of the hive. It's where most of the activity is. There's a little bit above it, and not really even to the sides, nothing in the back. And I just checked to see they've got plenty of sugar water, everything, so I hope they have found it and are drinking it. Yeah, but I just wanted to show off that my bees did not abandon me in the middle of the night. And yeah, I know this might be incredibly boring to other people, but it's really fun for me to keep checking on them and see what they're doing. Here are my bees after a very rainy night. Well, it's actually the afternoon, so it's not right after the night. But I definitely, when I went out this morning and nobody was moving around, these horrible visions that I was gonna see all these dead bees inside of their hive. And I guess that's why they say that newbies check their bees way too often, and I can understand it. So I try really hard. I haven't opened them up since we introduced the since we introduced the queen. But here they are now. It's afternoon, and they are doing all kinds of buzzing around. So I hope they are going out and they are finding good pollen and good nectar. They're bringing it back in to all the little larvae, and they're turning it into honey, all that sort of stuff. I don't know how the lighting is, if you can see them or not. And if you can, if you can actually see the bees, or if they're too small. But such good little bees.
The queen is probably the most important single bee in the whole hive. It's true that the worker bees do a lot of work, like caring for the larvae and the queen, and so none of them could really go on without the worker bees. But the queen is the only one who ever lays any fertilized eggs, and she lays the vast majority of all eggs. And so if she weren't there, especially since the average worker bee lives about 4 to 6 weeks, the hive would pretty quickly collapse. So my queen was introduced to the colony as part of when they were putting together boxes. They basically take part of colony, and then they take a queen, and you basically get a queen from hormones and that sort of thing that you expose the larvae to and what they get fed, that sort of thing. So that's what results in a bee turning into a queen. So they can manipulate that and create queens and then introduce those to the colony. So so my queen hadn't really been around her colony, so there's a process of the colony needing to accept her. And so what they do is they put her in a little cage that both protects her from the colony, because if she goes in there too quickly, they're just going to all sting her to death. But it also gives them a way of getting used to her and to take care of her in that time, because otherwise she's just in there alone and she doesn't have any food or anything. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic on kind of how that works. If I were filling my hive with a swarm that kind of just comes from a colony and where the queen takes off with some of the worker bees, then that wouldn't be the case, because the queen would have already been part of the colony and they'd be used to her and have accepted her. But so since my queen was not, she's in this cage, and after a couple of days she needs to be released from the cage so she can go actually be part of the colony. Unfortunately, letting the queen out of her cage wound up being much clumsier and much less skillful than I would have hoped. I tried to edit this piece to get just the highlights, but I hope it doesn't get too tedious and annoying for you.
You want the pin?
Yeah, there you go. Thanks.
What did I do with the pin? Oh, it's right here. Here you go.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Okay, we'll stick that in there for now. Okay. So the they're sticky. Is that the propolis or the wax?
It's probably propolis. They're probably starting to put that on there.
Good work, little bees. Okay. So here's the queen.
Shall we pull the frames apart?
Yeah.
I'll pull this end up.
Okay. Hi there, you little guys.
So, okay, I've pulled it apart over here. There
we go.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's loads of bees buzzing all around. Let's do a little test. She's still in there, moving around.
Oh, good.
So the net's on that side.
Yeah. It seems like they're coming off. Mm-hmm.
So the net's on this side.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so spin it around. Other side.
Oh.
Yeah, that side.
That's it. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Think they move
Yeah.
easily? So that's a test to see if they've accepted her or not. If they're being aggressive around the cage. So if they're being aggressive, when you try to push them, when you try to push them, you can't, because they're just trying to kill her. But so Amelia was just running her fingers across them, and they moved easily, which means that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So let's bring her over the frames, and like over the gap that you made.
Okay.
And let's try to dump her straight in there.
Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yep.
There, little bee. Okay.
Here, I'm gonna
So
come
I'm gonna try
over here.
and stick this in to the cork, which is like right. Oh, you can like tell that. Yeah, they've been kind of eating at it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm sticking that in the cork, and
then just point it downwards, because she might, if she's like my queen, she'll pop right out.
okay. Come on, little cork.
Oops.
There, little guy.
Is the cork still in?
Yeah, it's still in there.
Do you want me to use my little tool thing? To kind of...
Okay. Sure. Wait, so the queen can sting multiple times?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know.
Because I was thinking, because like, if she were being born, she would like sting and kill
Yeah, but maybe it doesn't kill her to sting like it kills
the other.
the other ones.
No, that's. So if I do make her mad.
Let's see if here I've got the hive tool here. Here we go. I've got
Okay.
these little
Okay.
guys.
See if that helps. Can I give you a thanks?
Yep.
Surgery. Oops, I think I pushed it all the way in.
Okay. Do you think she has enough space here? Flip it over so I can take a look. Nope.
Can she get past it or no?
Do you want me to give you a hand?
Okay, sure. Well, okay, now it's thoroughly in there.
Is it just floating around?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Let's not stick. Let's just Yep, she can get out.
Okay.
So just dump her, just hold it there.
There?
And then let's wait and see. Let's see if she can. Nope, she's still in there.
This whole process is weird. It's funny, like with bees, like, talk about like managing bees, and it's like, but really they're not like a domesticated animal.
No.
Or anything.
Nope. So based on all the ones around the cage, she seems to still be in there.
Okay.
So I wonder if when she comes off, if they'll come off too.
Oh, good.
Right.
Yeah, good thinking.
Oh, wait, no, she's out. Is she out? She's
What?
out. Yeah, she's out. Okay, so just maybe, yeah, she's just walking around the cage.
Okay.
Give her a minute. Okay, I'm gonna come to the other side. Okay. No, I don't want you to move. Lost track of her.
What's that?
There are a lot of bees
Oh.
around the door.
I think I still saw her on the outside. Maybe rotate your hand like this way. Yeah. They're still all over the box.
Oh, right. But it could just, but it smells like her too.
Yeah. Wait, she's inside.
Okay.
Yeah, she's inside. She's just right on the edge. She's just standing still,
Okay.
and they're all sniffing her, which is what they should be doing.
Okay.
I think that's her. I just see her butt.
Uh-huh.
And let me just watch the behavior of the other guys. I think that's her. There's a bunch crowding around her.
Yeah.
They're all sniffing her. I think that's her. Yeah, that's definitely her. I just see her butt, so she's head down, butt in the air. She's just standing still, and there's bees sort of sniffing all over her.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and put a lid on it.
Okay. Stick her between.
Yeah, so let's just leave things as they are.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So I'm gonna go ahead, if you don't mind,
Yeah,
me
yeah.
butting in here. I'm gonna go ahead and just put the lid over at the top of
Yeah.
it. And go ahead and just make sure she doesn't. She's still just hanging out there. I can still see her.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like 100% sure that's her.
Okay. Oh wow.
And why don't you put this box just down by the entrance?
Okay.
And let them figure out a way to
Figure out home.
find their way back in. In the meantime, I'm gonna put the feeder thing back on. Okay. And then this box is on. Let's just wait a minute before we put the things on and watch the behavior of the hive.
Okay. Like what way did you expect to?
I want to see them go back into the hive.
Gotcha.
There's a bunch fanning at the entrance.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Look at this little bee box. There are bees in there, but that was definitely the queen. Her body was long. She was amber colored.
After making sure the hive had a queen, it was time to go take care of the first queen.
Okay, here is my first queen in her little cage. So it's got that screen on there so that the worker bees in her colony can take care of her. But she died, so you can hear her little body in there. So we're gonna bury her. I actually did feel truly sad when she died. So gonna bury her and put a little lavender seed over here. So, okay, we did manage to get the screen to come off. So now we're gonna put this over into my hand. And there she is. There's the queen. And I have no idea if this is focused enough to see her. But we're gonna bury her right here. We've got, where did we put the hole? Come on, we can do this. Okay, there we go. There's a hole. So here's the hole. I'm going to put the queen in there. Cover it up. And then, so I can find it again here, we're going to put that right there. And then we're going to pull out, we're going to plant a little bit of lavender over here. My friend has a theory that bees like purple plants, and we're going to go
Overview button. Double tap to activate. Double tap and hold to long press.
Bring that down again. Okay, there we go. And everything I read online, as far as like from WikiHow and Burpee and all that, says I should have started this lavender planting about 3 months ago, planted it inside, etc. But the fact is that plants that need treatment like that don't survive in my home. So, here we go. We're gonna pinch just a couple little
Home button.
seeds there.
Overview button.
You can see anything? There we go. Where did I put? There we go. So there we go. We're putting a little lavender there above her head. And hopefully the next, well, it was her colony, but under the next queen that they come and eat from this lavender plant at some point in time. All right. Don't mean to be sentimental, but.
About a week and a half after introducing the queen to her new hive, it was time to go back and check to see how she was doing. It's most likely that you're not going to actually see the queen when you go back to check on her, but there are different things you can look at as far for evidence that she's doing well. For example, if there are eggs and larvae, that would indicate that the colony has chosen to make this hive their home and that the queen is healthy and doing her work. So the actual checking on the queen, there was too much going on and needing to move quickly, so there isn't any video of that, but we did have a little waxy surprise in there, a little treat, and so I got a video of that, and it's fortunate that I got a video of it because I had hoped to share it with everybody and get to look at the beeswax and the cells and everything, but a certain puppy dog ate the beeswax, and so it's no longer with us, but here we go. Okay, today we looked at the honeycomb for the first time, and sorry I didn't get any video of actually doing that, but it was pretty cool, lots of stuff in there, but yeah, so what I have here is I have some burr comb, and it is, let's see here, which way do I, okay, there we go. So it is basically, between two of the frames there was too much space, and so the bees were trying to fill it up with extra honeycomb, or well, extra beeswax, extra wax, and so this is what they created. The top up here was a little bit above, into the kind of the inner top, and then down here, I have no idea if you can actually see this, but there are all these perfect hexagons throughout this, and it's just really cool to see all these perfect hexagons just fitting together. And then basically it's a teardrop, it's whiter down here at the bottom, and so this is how they would do it if they weren't inside of a beehive with frames and everything, is they would kind of hang it up like that and then kind of build down, and so that was pretty cool to get to see. And then there were a couple of these smaller pieces that actually had some honey in it. It wasn't fully fermented and complete honey, so basically it was nectar that had fermented part of the way, but they hadn't capped it. They hadn't put kind of the lid on it, which is, they only do once it's actually completely honey. But yeah, so then the other things we saw in there, we saw, well, it can be really hard to see the eggs, and we didn't see those,
but so there were some very small larvae with little like worms. So basically, one egg gets laid into one of these little, well, they call them cells, and so saw little larvae in there, and then saw much bigger larvae. So in the time from when they hatch from the eggs until they are kind of done being larvae, their weight increases 1,500 times. It's 1,500 times larger than when they start out, which I think is pretty impressive. So they do that in about like 6 days. So we saw larger larvae, and then basically what happens once they're the nurse bees who are the worker bees who are nurse bees come and they put a cap on the cell with the larva in it, and then it turns into a bee, and then she turns into a bee, and then comes out and starts to work as a nurse bee. But so that's so we saw kind of there were some nurse bees in there with kind of just their hind ends sticking out, the little stingers sticking out, and so that means they were doing work in there. So there were bees kind of in all ages and stages of the turning into a bee process, and that's really good because that shows that the queen is in there and is still doing her queen egg laying and that part of things. So that indicates it's a healthy colony, and that makes me really happy. So we'll look back in a couple of weeks and maybe add another box on. Right now they're only kind of working in that bottom box there, but so hopefully in another week, a couple weeks, we can maybe add on a second box, or at least get close to adding on a second box. There we go. As much as I would like to deny it, bees do sting. I have been stung a few times. However, they definitely don't deserve the reputation they've earned. Okay, another part of beekeeping that I have to admit to, even though I kind of want to hide it, is the getting stung part of it. So I've only gotten stung 4 times so far, and each time I swear it was my own fault that I got stung. One was just because I wasn't paying attention, and I leaned my leg up against a place where bees were. The other times were just because I was moving too fast and whatever. So my last sting was on my right hand, and I have no idea if this is in focus or anything. But so basically my hand is very swollen right now. It's like a medical glove. When you blow up those rubber gloves. Basically that's what my hand feels like right now. But I actually, more than anything, it's just kind of fascinating. I once heard the story, this guy was, I don't remember exactly what he was studying, but he got some weird spider basically burrowing into the skin at the top of his head. And he was so fascinated, he just kind of let it live there and go through its little life cycle, burrowed into his head, just to observe it. So really, that's what how I feel about the stings. Is they're just kind of interesting to observe, and I wonder why my hand puffed up so much, whereas the other stings have not made me swell so much. Like this even goes down into my wrist and the front part of my forearm. So yeah, fascinating. There you go. So bees do sting, but it's always been my fault, and it makes me sad when they sting because I know that then they're gonna die, and I feel bad that my behavior, my moving too fast or whatever, is gonna lead to their death. But there we go.
This is just a little from my experience starting a beehive. I feel incredibly lucky to have this opportunity, and I thank you for letting me share it with you. Special thanks to Zelda, or Zuza, the Queen, Betty, Beth, Bernadette, Bella, Bertha, Brittany, Bree, Belinda, Babe, Barbie, Blondie, Becca, Bo, Betsy, Bernadine, Brandy, Bonita, Bonnie, Birdie, Blanca, Belle, Barry, Birdie, Bianca, Buffy, Baba, Beyonce, Baby, Blue, Becky, Billy, Bubble, Brooke, Bryn, Bailey, Bristol, Bunny, Brinley, Brooklyn, Blake,